Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here on this Sunday, the 31st of January, 2021. Welcome. Listen, guys, this is a more serious situation than people can imagine. The Robin Hood traders out there, with the GameStop situation, now they're turning their attention towards silver. I'm going to tell you guys, I checked on ATMEX this morning, and it looks like ATMEX, all of the things it says, you can't really order right now. They've. I think that they are on. They know. See, this is the situation we're in. Inventories of silver that's available for sale into the market for barren coin demand and industry is, and then you have another type of silver. You have silver out there that is being held in private hands. And a long time ago, back in the 80s and stuff, and back in the 70s and stuff, they had a lot of silver in inventories that could be sold into the market. And this is a number that they so carefully guard, is how much do they actually have in these inventories that they can, and they keep it in 1,000 ounce bars. They have it like stacked in a vault, and when they need it, they take those 1,000 ounce bars out of inventory, and they can smelt them into any kind of coin they want, or they can sell them for industry, or, this is how it's done, right? And how much of that do they actually have in reserve that's ready to be sold for sale? I'm thinking it might be a tremendously small number. And, these companies like ATMEX now are saying, hey, they're holding off sales. They're scared of the Robin Hood traders. Because these Robin Hood traders and stuff, and these people out there, if they attack silver, they go heavy after silver. Silver is the Achilles, and I've known this for years, that silver is the Achilles heel of the world's financial system. You can actually bring down the world's financial system. Because if the silver price shoots up too high, gold will follow. Maybe it'll lag behind a little bit, but if the silver price goes and does a moonshot, gold will follow. And, this is really their whole financial system that they've built is a giant house of cards. And the only substance behind all of it, the whole world, is gold and silver. It's the tip of the pyramid. It's the Ben on top of the pyramid, what they call the chief cornerstone of the world's financial system. Gold and silver. And there's a very limited supply of it. Now let's take a closer look at silver and what have they been doing? Well, going back, if we went back before the Industrial Revolution, you know how they used to mine silver? With a pick and a shovel. And they'd haul the carts up out of the mine with a horse or a mule. This is slow, back-breaking work, and it took a long time to actually extract the silver ore from the ground. And so they had these massive quantities of high-quality silver ore around the world, but they were just picking at it. Like, they weren't really digging in and digging it all out. It was there in the earth, ready to go, right? Then the Industrial Revolution came along. First, the steam shovel. Now, compared to a horse and a wagon and a cart and all what they were using, with picks and shovels, you know what a steam shovel could do? How much earth it could move? How much ore? And then conveyor belts. During the Industrial Revolution, they started to move it with conveyor belts. And a conveyor belt is so much faster than trying to load up a little wagon and haul it up out of the mine with a rope with a horse. And then they got these big diesel engines started to come into the place, during the Industrial Revolution. And so much faster they could dig this ore out of the ground, crush it, pulverize it, extract the silver. It made it so much easier for them with these big modern machines, like front-end loaders and big modern mining machines with hydraulics, right? But in this big extraction drive, they scoured the earth. Just like, when there's, you got if your mama, in the old days, your mama used to make pudding, right? She'd make the pudding and everything. And she'd pour the pudding out into a dish and put it in the fridge, and then she'd hand you the pot and the pot and the spoon. It's for you to lick and stuff, It's good, great, back when Mama used to make pudding. This is the way the earth was, If we went back 100 years ago with silver, it was like the pot that hasn't been touched yet. But these modern mining machines are in there, and they've scoured it. They've scoured it, and now all that's left is what in the old days they called tailings. And so what it is it's lesser grade ore. It means when you crush and pulverize the ore, you don't get as many ounces per ton. You still get silver, but not near as many ounces per ton. Well, this ore grade is falling off very rapidly, and they're getting less and less per ton out of their ore. So this means they got to do more and more work with their modern machines. And it's always diminishing returns because the earth only has so much silver in it. They're cleaning the pot. And in the end, maybe 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, they'll be licking out the pan. So there's none left. So these Robin Hood traders, they know exactly where to attack in the world's financial system. But, there's always consequences for your actions. And, I'm going to tell you the consequences for this, for bringing down the world's financial system, the consequences could be absolutely, do they realize what they're messing with? Do they realize that they're pulling the pin on the world's like a hand grenade, when you pull the pin, they're pulling the pin on the world's financial system. And they realize the ramifications because everything runs on money. You freeze up the world's financial system, and you lock it up, and if conditions in the world start to disintegrate, in other words, companies out there, they're frozen out of their accounts or whatever, they can't make payroll, they're going to send their employees home. Right? And you get too many of the world shutting down. Basically, it shuts down the world. It's almost like, it's a very dangerous game they play, because if you start shutting down the world, how far does this go before all of a sudden you get something pop up like what's happening in Russia right now? You guys know what's happening in Russia right now? Massive protests. They're having to use a heavy hand. And the big question mark is, will that work? We're watching Russia very carefully right now to see what happens with this situation. But this kind of a situation, look how quick it can come from nowhere. The Russians right now, what is it they're doing? Something, is it blue pants or something? Or something they're doing anyway. It signifies what they're doing. Well, the same thing happened in France. They turned to yellow vests. But a movement can take on any shape or any form, and it can come from nowhere, seemingly from nowhere. Just people are frustrated because they see their quality of life going downhill extremely rapidly. They look at these guys up on Wall Street, and they see their quality of life's going up very rapidly, while the ordinary person's quality of life is going down very rapidly, and they say, hell no, we ain't taking this no more. And they look, and whatever they see could become the next big thing, or the next big revolution, or whatever, It could be anything. Anything could trigger it. If you get the conditions right, and the conditions right are dissatisfied people. Massive groups of dissatisfied people. That's the right conditions to have this erupt from nowhere. And, if they think that the answer is actually bringing down the financial system by attacking it at key points, they got to think about the ramifications on the other side of that, what it might be. Because everything in the world runs on money. And if you freeze up the credit markets, can the Fed step into the rescue and get everything unlocked again if everything is just a tangled up mess? Because if you look at the financial system like they're ropes or threads of money running through the internet is what they are, And if you guys have ever worked with fishing or whatever, and you got a lot of ropes and a lot of lines and stuff, just on its own account, it can make into a hopeless tangle. of these fishing lines and stuff. So you got a lot, and you're fishermen. And you get this big tangled mess. Sometimes it can be very hard, you know, a big ball of different types of twine all twined in together in a tangled mess. Well, see, right now we got all these lines of credit running through and they're just like fishing lines running through the internet every which way, right? You tangle all that up, and it could take weeks or months to straighten it all out again to where credit starts to flow freely through the system. Now, this almost happened all on its own. That's what the repo crisis was about. But the Fed was able to untangle it. In 2008, it almost happened. That's what a meltdown is. A meltdown is like a tangling of all these lines of credit and everything because the money's not there. And it's like instantly, because we're in the computer age, all of these digits send back and forth across the internet, and instantly the tangle can all of a sudden get hit because, say, player X is a big bank or whatever, and they go down. Well, all these other banks might be connected into them with loans, and the next thing you know, that might trigger a second default, and a third one, and a fourth one, and a fifth one, and next thing you know, all of that money's flying back and forth, or credit starts to just poof, vanish. And margin calls start to go out. And the system just locks up because there's just too much of it. And so this is called a credit freeze or a freeze. Jim Rickards has talked about this a lot. That could really happen. He calls it ICE 9. The system could actually just lock up and freeze. And in a matter of weeks after that would happen, you'd see everything start to shut down. Telecommunications, the electrical grid even, and the government, they can panic all they want. The internet goes down. They're lost for communication. You know? And if everything were to collapse like that and come to a grind and stop, and then chaos were to break out, how do you fix it? How do you restore order if it's worldwide? Because you better restore it quick. But if there's no way to restore it, what happens? Well, what happens in the end is, if a situation... Now, I'm only doing this theoretically. I'm talking about this. It's entirely theoretical at this point, because something like this has never happened before. But if it did, if the financial system locked up and it made the whole world lock up, and then chaos ensued, and you couldn't restore order for months, or perhaps years, everybody'd be on their own. And it would be a very bad situation indeed, with a tremendous toll on human life. To what extent do I believe that toll on human life would be? Probably in excess of 97%. But now I'm just theoretical. This is just theoretical, of course. You know? The best place for survival in a situation like that would not be in the northern hemisphere. Now, we're just talking theoretically, of course, guys. You know, so don't get upset. Don't think this is coming. I'm saying it's coming. I'm not saying it's coming, but I'm saying that, just saying, what if? You know, theoretically, what if we had an entire worldwide meltdown of the entire system? The system that we've established over hundreds of years. It just basically froze and locked up and everything else. And nobody could get it started because there's just too much chaos. The best place to survive would be in around the equator, around the world. You know, there'd be the least radiation. Yes, I said radiation because if in a situation like that, how do you put out those fires that can't be put out? You know, all those nuclear power plants, they need tending all the time. They need water cooling and everything else, you know, and they do have emergency backup generating systems, but they need maintenance as well, you know, and if the world's gone crazy, the people that maintain things like that just wouldn't be able to get in to maintain them. So we'd have hundreds of power plants melting off, you know. So that would irradiate the whole northern hemisphere, basically light it up, and so it would be a band around the middle of the earth where you could put in at least 2 crops a year. You'd have to have a full growing season in order to survive because you'd be on your own, and you'd need to be somewhere around the equator region or not too far off where you'd be able to grow crops year-round. And there's not enough radiation to do any real damage in that area, because the radiation would all float up around the northern hemisphere, and it would circle around, and it would deplete itself out. The radiation would, it would come down in the rain, and the people in the equator regions would get radiation too, because there'd be so much radiation, but it wouldn't be on a level that would kill them. It would be more like a slow toxifying effect, over a period of years, cumulative. And they would survive, but they would probably end up being the people around the people that did survive it around the equator would very probably be sterile. And so in the following subsequent generations, there would be no humans left. That's the situation we'd be facing if the world went into some sort of a crazy locked up system. Now I'm telling you guys again that I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm just theoretically saying, what if? What if everything were to lock up and the internet were to go down, power grids were to completely fail worldwide? What would it look like after 6 months to a year? And then what would it look like in subsequent generations after the event? Well, it would be the end of mankind. 200 years from now, we'd be gone. Because the people that would survive it, or that live around the equator, after subsequent generations, they wouldn't be able to reproduce any longer because of all the radiation. And so what we would have is we'd have a planet that would ultimately look like Mars if you come back 1,000 years from now. And who knows, maybe that's what happened to the Martians. I'm just joking, guys, I'm just joking. Anyway, listen, guys, enough theoretical talk about this sort of thing. I don't want to scare you guys because you guys say, oh, Glenn said the world's going to come to an end. No, I didn't say the world was going to come to an end. I was just doing a theoretical what would happen if the entire world system were to lock up and freeze, and the internet were to go down, and the power were to go out for an extended period of time. There's not very many things out there that could actually make that happen. Excuse me, guys. Listen, thank you guys for listening to this show. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.